So you want to know how to make a thumbnail that stands out like this one. Today I'm going to show you how I do these thumbnails every single day. I'm also going a little bit more in depth with the 3 apps that I use all the time: Lightroom, Snapseed, and Canva. Stick around because after this video you'll be able to implement what I normally do in YouTube channels with over 12 million subscribers. Hi everyone, Marcus here from madpack, and if you love tech and practical tips, this is the place for you. Step by step, I'm going to teach you everything that I learned in the last 6 years so you can do thumbnails like the ones that I do here and in other channels. So thumbnails is the first thing that separates you from big channels. So you can have an amazing video, but if the thumbnail is not good enough, nobody's going to click. So let's jump on the steps to make this kind of thumbnails standing out. So the first app that I use all the time is Lightroom, and I have to say to you guys that it can be a little bit daunting if you never use, because you have plenty of options in here, light, color, effects, and so on and so on. But believe me, when you learn to use it, it's super easy. So the first one that you have here is light, and you have plenty of options. So you have exposure, and here you need to follow your gut. And what I'm trying to say with this is, if you touch the screen, you can adjust. And as you can see, if I just do what it's saying in here, so the red parts is the parts that are burning. And if I take my finger, you can see that it's burning everywhere. So for the exposure, I like that it's just slightly dark in there. And I normally have a tendency to pull the contrast a little bit higher because it's going to make everything slightly darker. When we look here to the highlights, you can even pull to the maximum. It's not going to affect anything in this case. And here on the shadows, also not a lot. Once again, it's just to make it slightly darker. The same that I normally do with GoPro footage, that I use the darker points below 0 because it's going to make everything sharper, if it makes sense. And after you have the whites, and here, yes, you definitely can see where it's burning and where the red disappears, you know that you are perfectly fine. And after you have the blacks here on the bottom, here you should appear, as you can see, when the black disappears, it should be fine and you are ready to go. So the next step is colors, and obviously you have all these options: the temperature, the tint, the vibrance, the saturation. But I don't really touch in there. I prefer to do color by color. And if you see here, when you select the red, and if I put my finger on the screen and I start changing this, you can see that now it's all black and white. And where is red, let me just pull, you can see that is red there on the back of the wheel. To be honest, I don't do that. I just go with the flow. I just like to look to what I'm doing, and I try to adjust in here and a bit less. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine in there. After here on the greens, I normally push a bit more, and as you can see, if I do like this, it shows you also that it affects just slightly the grass. When we go to the blues, I'm a bit obsessed with blue. I think you can see through the background of this room, but I have tendency to pull the saturation to the maximum and drop not really to the bottom, but slightly, because what it's going to do is, where you see the jacket and you see the wheel, later on is going to make everything pop out slightly more. And I do the same with the purples, because the purples many times they also affect the jacket. You can see that you don't see a lot of things happening in there, but when you bring the hue down on the purples, you are coming closer to the blues. After you have the effects, here I have tendency to bring the texture down and bring clarity up. So once again, I'm going to make the dark a little bit darker and the lighter a little bit lighter. So in that case, you have a bigger contrast. And I have tendency to just put a bit of vignette, but it's just slightly. It's just to make that your eye is guided to the middle. Normally, I don't touch the grain. When we go to details, I have tendency to put sharpening in about 30%. And I increase detail there. I put a bit of masking, a bit of noise reduction. It doesn't have to be perfect on those numbers. And after here, when you put color noise reduction, I have tendency to put detail in maximum and smoothness in the minimum. Because if you have a bit of smoothness, the photo gets a little bit smoother and it doesn't look so realistic. And if you want that is a bit more realistic, obviously you can go back to your effects and just add a bit of grain, and in that way it looks more like a photo that was taken with a DSLR. Last but not least, you have the optics. You can remove CA and lens aberration. I'm going to be honest, this one doesn't make a lot of difference. And when I finish that, I'm just going to grab this photo and open on Snapseed. This tool is super powerful, and I don't understand how it's free. The first thing that I normally do here is I go to HDR scale, and I'm going just to pop in slightly. So what it's going to do is that the shadows on that photo, they are a little bit more visible. And after you just save, I have tendency also to do a bit of drama. Now is too much, okay? But it's just to make some of those parts a little bit more HDR, if it makes sense, even if I use a bit of HDR and I increase the saturation. So if I show you before and after, you can see that the photo is already standing out much more. The next thing that I normally do is brush, and this obviously you need to have some skills, and it may be the one that will be a little bit harder for you to do, but I have tendency to try to increase a bit the lightness on the product that I want to show, and obviously the light on my face. Obviously I'm not doing like I normally do my thumbnails, that I go really in details, because this takes me a few hours to do, but my face is already popping out slightly, not too much, but slightly. And I have tendency to also do here a bit. I'll just do a little bit on this photo and I'll come back to you guys. When I finish with the light, obviously I'm going to work into the shadows. So I go to -5, and here I'm going to do a little bit more on my face. I'm just going to go around and work on it. Now that I work on the shadows and the brightness of this photo, you can see that it's a bit more 3D. The background is not really relevant, but you can see a massive difference between one and the other, that this will make the photo pop out much more when it's finished. So when I finish this, I'm going just to export this one also, and I'm going to import this photo once again to Lightroom. So now that I have here the photo, I'm going to start working on the colors once again. That's the only part that I normally open, and I increase just slightly here. Maybe for you guys it looks a little bit too saturated, but believe me, on this side it looks perfectly fine. And when I go now to the blues, because you remember I have increased the purples and everything to look more blue, you're going to see that, for example, my jacket and some parts of the wheel, now they are starting to pop out a little bit more, but it's going to give that extra saturation that you need for a thumbnail. So if I stay pressing, you'll see that it's just a slightly difference between the original photo and this one. So when I finish to do this, I will save that copy and I will export to my computer. So when you jump to Canva, you obviously have to upload your image, and when you finish to do that, you are going to add 2 of them. And the one that is on top, you are going to make it small until it just appears the section that is going to be on top. So in this case, it will be myself with the wheel, if it makes sense. You finish to do that, you are going to do a group, you are going to scale up. Your image is basically taking majority of the space on that image, and that photo needs to be guiding the eyes of who is seeing that thumbnail. So in this case, I'm on the wheel and I'm looking slightly down, and towards me I have all the right hand sides to put the title and so on and so on. When you finish to do that, you do ungroup, you press Alt. When you finish to do that, you go to Edit and you remove the background. And when you finish, it will look something like this. You should be ready to go to the next step. The next thing that I like to do is to basically put some elements that will create some three-dimensional to that object that you want to show off. So in this case, I normally use this line, and using elements that they are always the same lettering, the same type of titles, or for example, just 2 or 3 words. I don't recommend you to put more than that, otherwise it's too busy, your thumbnail. But if we go back here, when I finish to put that line, I'm going to put that line on the background, so you can see that now is making me and the wheel stand out a little bit more, and we can see more difference between the wall and the floor. And when you finish to do that, you go to elements, and I add 2 squares. You extend, and one of the things that you need to see is it needs to have these lines here on the corners, because it allows you to change the shape. After, you can just press outside of it and copy, and you do exactly the same. You put it here, and now what we are going to do is we are going to change the position to backwards. So you press twice because you want behind the line and behind the main photo, and you'll finish with something like this. Obviously it doesn't look nice. You go here on the top where is transparency, and you are going to drop until you are happy with the amount of transparency that you have in there, and you do the same to the other one. And if we want, for example, to follow something like you can see here, we are going to now change the color. So you go here on the corner, you put green, or you can put a different color. Obviously, I'm just using exactly the same look that I have in there. Something that I've been doing recently is to add some movement to my thumbnails. As you can see here on the hand, you see a shadow in white around my hand. Here you can see a shadow in there. So it's just to create some movement. So this one, I'm going now to go to the adjustments, and I'm going to put the brightness on the maximum, the contrast I think is on the maximum, shadows you put on the maximum, whites on the maximum, blacks is on the minimum, saturation you drop. I'm going to put maybe here because it gives more movement towards the front. Okay, so it seems that I was there and I'm moving towards the title. So that's something that I've been doing recently. I'm not been doing that for a long period of time, but my thumbnails, they have tendency to change slightly over time, and I add new designs, like for example the titles with the black around. That's something definitely that is new on my thumbnails. You need to choose a title that is very easy to read and to understand. It doesn't have to be the same that you have on your title, but you want that title is basically complementing what you say on the video. In this case, not again, and the title maybe is Be God Master is the worst wheel that I write. And when I finish to do this, you can see it once again. Let's say that I want also to put the name of the wheel. I'm going to put it in here, Be God Master. Another thing that I normally do is always to add elements that they are exactly the same in all my videos, same lettering. In this case, the arrow needs to be a little bit bigger. It's just to create a little bit more movement, but not too much things happening in there. The logo, people will understand that that's my brand. So which app do you like the most? Is it Canva, Lightroom, or Snapseed? Let me know in the comments below. And next week, I'm going to put side by side a photo edit only on Lightroom and the same photo edit only on Snapseed. Which one will be the best results? If you want to know that and much more, you know, next video is for you.